This will really is game, if you like. Here it is. Hard out of that.
The biggest woman in town. Well, now that there is hot, the hand of hard and supper. She's the candle of the big men suffer. To see them and thrill them, torture them and kill them. In her delight, they say.
I saw her at the seashore with a great big pan. There was Hannah pouring water on a drowning man. Hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, GA.
Yes.
In old Savannah, I said Savannah, the weather there is nice and warm. The climate's of that southern brand. But here's what I don't understand. They got a gal there, a pretty gal there, who's colder than an Arctic storm. She's got a heart just like a stone. Even icemen leave her alone. Hi, folks. How are we tonight? Well, we have a show for you. Isn't that right, Mr. Peck?
Mr. Peck is my father.
Oh, he's funny. I've been singing around these parts for quite a while now, and I hope you like the numbers we've picked. I know I sure do. You ought to see her. You ought to see her. Outside she's just as soft as silk, but socially she's hard as nails. She's just a gal who hates the males, and when she's nasty, she's about as free as sour milk. Nothing she likes better than feeding poison food to her man. They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Talk about your cold, refrigerating mama. For us, she's a polar bear's pajamas. Tease 'em and thrill 'em, torture and kill 'em is her delight, they say. An evening spent with Hannah sitting right on your knees is like traveling through Alaska in your BVDs. Hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, GA. Welcome to the Untold Tales of Bibi Osterwald. Tonight, we're here to piece together my story. If my grandma was Ethel Merman, I might not feel the responsibility to tell this story, but Bibi Osterwald is one of the unsung heroes of the golden age of musical theater. So tonight, we crack open her songbook and make sense of what it means to be her granddaughter. And I've been practicing. As my grandma says, some of this has to be funny or it's going to be dull as hell. Hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, GA. Now, this vamp isn't from Savannah. I was born in New Jersey, but raised on the outskirts of D.C. Oh, look, there we are. Rudolph and Dagmar Osterwald. That's me with the American flag and my sister Marie. How did two people from Norway and Germany end up in Rock Creek Park? That's their story. And this one's mine. Let's get to the good stuff. When I was in high school, I used to tell my mom I was going to the library, but instead sneak off to saloons to sing. I was one of 7 girls. Oh yeah, 7 girls, so it was easy to slip out. And with the Depression and all, we needed the money. Don't worry, my father always made sure there was food on the table. Listen to this one. One Thanksgiving, he tried to pass off oatmeal for a turkey. He made a huge pot of oats and molded it into our prize-winning bird. I'll never shake the image of him standing at the head of the table, ceremoniously carving our Quaker oat turkey. My parents always tried to do the best by us girls. As we got older, I think we really understood the importance of hard work. The importance of hard work. The cork. When my dad was a kid, Bibi used to walk up and down the halls of her apartment practicing her lines and songs with a wine cork in her mouth. He told me it was her trick to get her vocal placement just right. I sure wish she was here to help me with my vocal placement. Actually, I have so many questions for her. I want to say to my younger self, girl, why didn't you ask her these questions? But 10-year-old Elise didn't know the right questions to ask. Life was so simple. A normal day with Grandma was driving to Toys R Us, listening to KTLA, belting out the oldies. Now here I am hearing stories like this one for the first time, and it's like I'm getting to know my grandma all over again. Grief is hard, man. You know what's also hard? This whole playing two people thing. Cut me some slack. Back to Bibi. I didn't learn these tricks overnight. When I was in high school, I performed in roadside theater. We went from town to town performing all kinds of shows. We were like a little vaudeville. It was during that time I met the man who gave me my first break, Father Gilbert Harkey. Father Harkey was the founder of the speech and drama department at Catholic University, and he was scouting new talent. He offered me a scholarship to study music and theater, which I happily accepted. I knew it might be the only way I'd get a college education. 3 years and a couple lip trills later, I wound up back in his office, and he said to me, Bibi, you've learned all you can here. It's time to move to New York. Oh boy. He handed me $30 and told me that I would be staying at the rehearsal club, which provided free housing for actresses at the time. The only thing I get from my alma mater is a phone call asking for a donation. I mean, do you know how many apartments you'd have to buy in New York to house all the actresses? The entire Upper West Side. Father Harkey even set her up for a first audition for a brand new musical. I'm just a fool when lights are low. I can't be Percy or Kuwait.
Good. Let's find out if this works on tempo.
I'm just a fool when lights are low. I can't be Percy or Kuwait.
Good. Now show me that she's real fond of the fellas.
Okay. I'm just a fool when lights are low. I can't be Percy or Kuwait. I ain't the type that can faint. How can I be what I ain't? I can't say no. But they did. I may not have been Rogers or Hammerstein's pick for Ado Annie, but I had some roles coming my way. In the meantime, I had to pay rent. Riverside Exchange, may I please get the number? Good morning, sir. May I please see your identification? Step right this way. Tickets, please. My favorite job was being an usherette at the St. James Theater. I made $11 a week. Now, this was not glamorous by any means, but I got to work the orchestra section, and I had a fabulous view of the stage. Guess what show was playing? Oklahoma. Well, Wendell Willkie came in one night. He was the Republican presidential candidate at the time, and he was sitting in my section. Good evening, Mr. Willkie. Step right this way. Well, I put him in the wrong seat. He was not happy. Neither was my manager. They demoted me to the balcony. In that moment, I made a promise to myself, Bibi, one day you will perform on the St. James stage. Being an usherette will not be the only thing this theater knows you for. For 7 years, I worked jobs like this one and auditioned, waiting for my big break. Little did I know, a letter from a DC theater patron would be what got my foot in the door.
Get her killed.
Now, The Theater Guild was the main theater producing group in New York City. If you worked with them, you were with the top.
Dear Theater Guild, you have to see this actress Bibi Osterwald for the role of Mrs. Casey Jones for Sing Out Sweet Land. I have seen her perform many times in D.C. She is a great talent. It would be a mistake to miss out on her. Sincerely yours, E.K. Myers.
Turns out, Father Harkey had invited E.K. Myers to see Sing Out Sweet Land when it was in development in my alma mater. Clearly, Father Harkey had a knack for the next big thing. No wonder they called him the showbiz priest. And as showbiz goes, I had to audition 3 times. It finally happened. My Broadway debut! Maybe after the show you can write me a letter? I couldn't believe it. I would be singing and dancing on the same stage as Alfred Drake and Burl Ives. After 102 performances on Broadway, we took it on the road. To Chicago, Boston, and Washington, D.C. Returning to my hometown to perform for the very people who helped launch my career. Oh, sure was something. Come all around us if you want to hear a story about a brave engineer. Casey Jones was the rounder's name. On a 6-8 wheeler boy, he won his fame. The caller called Casey at the 4:30, kissed his wife at the station door, mounted to the cabin with his orders in his hands, and he took his farewell trip to the promised land. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin. Casey Jones with his orders in his hands. Casey Jones mounted to the cabin. Mounted to the cabin with his orders in his hands. Ooh, I'll tell you this. If you need more than 3 hours of sleep at night and don't like living out of a suitcase, it may be best to find another line of work. Put in your water and shovel your coal. Stick your head out the window, watch some drivers roll around her till she leaves the rail. Was I'm 8 hours late with the Western Mail. He looked at his watch and his watch was slow. He looked at his water and his water was low. He turned to the fireman and then he said, "We're going to reach Frisco, but we'll all be dead." Casey Jones, going to reach Frisco. Casey Jones, but we'll all be dead. Casey Jones, going to reach Frisco. Going to reach Frisco, but we'll all be dead. Casey said just before he died, "There's 2 more roads I'd like to ride." The fireman said, "What could they be?" The South Pacific and the Santa Fe. Mrs. Casey Jones sat on her bed a-sighing, just received a message that her Casey man was dying. Said, "Go to bed, children, and hush your crying, 'cause you got another papa on the Salt Lake line." Mrs. Casey Jones got another papa. Mrs. Casey Jones on that Salt Lake line. Mrs. Casey Jones got another papa. Got another papa on the Salt Lake line.
Yeah!
Discovering it took my grandma 7 years to make her Broadway debut sure makes me feel better. I've got another 2. But what if it takes longer than 2 years? What if it doesn't happen at all? I find myself in a bit of a state working on this show. On one hand, I have this incredible woman to look up to. On the other hand, I have this incredible woman to look up to. People always say how uncanny it is. We're twins, a generation apart, spitting images of each other. But I hope eventually it's just as uncanny how our careers played out. For starters, Bibi and I have both played our fair share of moms before the age of 30. The magic of wigs and moo-moos. My last gig was Ethel McCormick, one of the moms in that groundbreaking classic Footloose. I played her in this quaint little suburb called Waterbury, Connecticut, which, if you don't know, is kind of like Bakersfield. But just like Bibi, I love traveling for work. It's like adult summer camp. You're best friends with all these people you just met, and you know way too much about them. Until I slip into my next moo-moo, I have some day jobs of my own. Hi, welcome to Fred's. Can I get you something to drink? What did I tell you about holding my hand when we crossed the street? Good morning, Senior Staffing. Where can I transfer your call? Hey, guys. Do you like comedy? Who knows the perfect recipe for success? Is it who you take acting class with? How good your headshots are? How many high C's you can belt? Oh, I know. Lots of nights watching Grey's Anatomy with tequila. He knows what I mean. Speaking of Eugene O'Neill, maybe it's better if you hear it from her. Not long after Sing Out Sweet Land, I got another call from the Theater Guild. Now they called me, they said, "Baby, we have this new play that we'd love to hear out loud, and there's a role that's perfect for you. The thing is, it's going to take quite a long time. Do you have about 6 hours?" So of course, I went down the next day and read for 6 hours. And after, Eugene O'Neill looked at me and said, "Bibi, your voice is exactly what I was thinking when I wrote this role."
Bibi, it's Steve. You booked The Iceman Cometh for the role of Cora. They loved your work yesterday. Congratulations.
Well, this was exciting. But 3 days earlier, I had auditioned for the new Ray Bolger show, 3 to Make Ready.
Bibi, it's Steve again. You're never gonna believe this, but you got an offer for Ray Bolger's new show, 3 to Make Ready. Call me back.
2 Broadway offers in 1 day? 2 Broadway offers in 1 day? Sorry, back to Bibi. My agent pushed me to go with the Bolger review because the pay was double and he felt that my career was moving more in the direction of musical comedy. So I went with 3 to Make Ready. Who knew The Iceman Cometh would be so popular? Perspective is key. Sometimes you will dress up in a milkmaid costume and milk a prop cow. We've all had those jobs. But then there's others. Wow, what a life, jumping from show to show.
You know, it isn't like closing one door and opening another. I wasn't a Judy Garland or anything like that. But it just seemed that I was at the right place at the right time and I was what they wanted.
I wasn't even born when Bibi gave this interview, but it's packed with zingers like that one. I know I'll never be able to ask her these questions, but hearing her voice again, and these no-nonsense accounts of these incredible experiences, it's like 90 minutes of grandma's sage advice. Bibi was working on a book, so her and a friend sat down to chat about their life. As this older woman, she has so much perspective on who she was and what she did. I wish I had a glimpse into the kind of perspective she had at my age. I want to ask her how she dealt with the instability, the rejection, the years of not working. But at least I have these tapes. They give me a little window to the kind of encouragement Bibi might give me now if we were driving around LA belting out the oldies. My next gig was the new Julie Stein musical, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But this time, I had a new challenge. Understudying both female leads, Lorelai and Dorothy. I was understudying Yvonne Adair, who played Dorothy, and Carol Channing, who played Lorelai. Basically, I had to learn 2 full roles and sit backstage every night while Carol and Yvonne performed. I only went on when one of them couldn't be there, and sometimes it was at a moment's notice. Let me tell you, 14 songs and 2 completely different characters was not an easy feat. But I dug deep. Step on the gas and step 2, red and white's class A. Hey, hey, this is the way. We're keeping cool with Coolidge. What a relief you get when the rhythm has gotcha. Hotcha, hail to the chief. We're keeping cool with Coolidge. He's our pal. We're keeping cool with diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but it won't pay the rental on your humble flat or help you at the automat. Men grow old as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end. Square cut or pear shaped, these rocks don't lose their shape. I love what I'm doing when I'm doing it for love. The kick that I get is my reward. And really in my heyday, if I need $10 till payday, because I love what I'm doing when I'm doing it for love. By the time Gentlemen Prefer Blondes closed, I had been lucky enough to play these two gals 11 out of the 18 months. One show, I went on for Lorelai in the first act and Dorothy in the next. Broke all the records. I had learned the ropes. I knew I could step into somebody else's shoes. But it was time to fill some of my own.
Welcome to the Village Vanguard, home to Judy Holliday, Adolph Green, and Betty Comden's musical comedy skit show, The Reviewers.
I auditioned and managed to book a solo set at the Village Vanguard. We had to do about 2 sets a night, 35 minutes each. Now, I was not a jazz enthusiast. I was a theater enthusiast. But I was willing to learn. I brought my music down and I met the pianist Art Tatum. He wore these little dark glasses. But those were the kinds of glasses a lot of musicians wore, so I didn't think anything of it. I had no idea who Art Tatum was, or that he was one of the best jazz pianists of the 20th century. So we started with Jazz Baby. Well, my nerves got the best of me and I forgot my first line. So I said to him, Mr. Tatum, be a doll and read me my first line. And the drummer says to me,
Man, he's blonde.
oh no, what have I done now?
Don't worry, Toots, we gotcha. My daddy was a ragtime trumpet player.
My mama was a ragtime cabareter. They met one night at a tango tea. There was a syncopated wedding, and then came me. Folks think the way I walk is a fad, but it's a birthday present from me, mommy and dad. 'Cause I'm a jazz baby. Oh, little jazz baby, that's me. There's something in my tone of a saxophone that makes me have a little wiggle all my own. 'Cause I'm a jazz baby, full of jazzful harmony. The walk, the talk, the ball, the jack, the cause all the talk is just a copy of the way I naturally walk. 'Cause I'm a jazz baby. Oh, little jazz baby, that's me. Rock to sleep while the cradle goes to and fro to the tune of a tickle toe. Ever since I started into groove, love to hear that music playing. See my dear old mama swaying. Jazz, oh jazz, that's all I ever knew. Jazz, oh jazz, that's all I wanna do. Jazz, oh jazz, that's why I'm never blue. Play me a little jazz, 'cause I'm a jazz baby. Oh, little jazz baby, and baby don't mean maybe. A little jazz baby, that's me. I met so many wonderful musicians playing the nightclub circuit. But there was this one good-looking fella who played the bass who kept catching my eye. Why am I just as happy as a child? Why am I like a racehorse running wild? Why am I in a state of ecstasy? settling down. But that bass. I'm in love again. I'm a lovebird singing. I'm in love again. I'm a spring lamb springing. I'm in love again. Wedding bells are ringing. Let's go. And those wedding bells rang all right. Bibi and Justin got married at St. Bartholomew's Church in New York City in 1951. The guest list was star-studded. Recognize those gals? I happen to be baptized there myself, and I've always thought if I had a church wedding, that would be a pretty special place to have it. I guess I should find a groom first. But discovering it took my grandma till she was 33 years old to get married, it sure makes me feel better. I've got another 5. That's how I really started learning about jazz. So, I was singing these numbers around town when I got a call. Someone was interested in me for a thing at the Old Nick. The Old Nick was a well-known saloon and jazz joint down on 2nd Avenue. Back to my roots. We would be doing early American dramas with oleos in between. Well, if we clicked at the Old Nick, we were gonna have a television show on Saturday nights called Captain Billy's Mississippi Music Hall. Well, this was back during the time we were still figuring out television and what worked and what didn't. So here we were on the forefront of that world. Ooh. We had a curtain, not just any curtain, an 8-foot tall, black velvet curtain with Bibi all in rhinestones. It was heaven. show, 2 months, 8 weeks, I guess. People had a ball. We brought in 2,000 people a night. So CBS said, they're going, they're clicking, let's put them on the air. And we did. We played Captain Billy's Mississippi Music Hall live, right from the theater. They would bring in the cameras like they do today, pan across the audience, okay. Well, while we were there, Julius Monk came in. He was the entrepreneur for the Rue Van Bleu, the swankiest nightclub in the city. And he said to me, Bibi, I think you belong over at La Rue Bamboo. And I said to him, I don't know, Julius, you're very elegant over there. I'm very happy here at the Old Nick. We have sawdust on the floor. But I realized I couldn't say no.
Ladies and gentlemen, an encore appearance of that stunning soubrette from the Broadway musical comedy stage, who applauded in so many successes in the past. She's going to be enhancing your television for practices. Bibi Osterwald.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have been doing a great deal of thinking since I last worked here. I've been doing a great deal of thinking since I last worked. And I've come to the conclusion that some girls are slim and trim and chic. They watch their weight, they're up to date, and still they wait week after week for a prince on a snow-white charger. But of course, he never comes. For fashion work, I'm not designed. I'm photographed like Robert Taft. And fore and aft, that means behind, I'm getting somewhat larger. But business simply hugs. It's not what you do or you think or you say, or the clothes that you wear, or the price that you pay, or the number of times you're at bat. Oh no, it's much, much simpler than that. I don't use rouge, I don't use paint, I don't believe in fixing up to look like what I ain't. My figure isn't stacked, but here's a fact you can't ignore. If I want to sleep alone, I gotta roll my door. You either got it, or you ain't got it. You got it, or you ain't. You either got it, or you ain't got it. Rita's got it, she ain't no fraud. Bergman had it, but she took it abroad. Some ladies' shapes are built up nice by making use of what I call a very strange device. They put on quite a show when they go around the town, but sisters best believe when the chips are down, you either have it or you don't have it. You have it or you don't. You either have it or you don't have it. Rita's got it, I suppose, but if Margaret has it, no one knows. Maybe the modern type who takes a little drink and thinks at last the time is right. She buys a little light and hangs it right across her tail. She burns a lot of kerosene, but hey, no sale. You either lose it or you can't lose it. You lose. Now I had two when I came in here. Or you can't lose it. At 5 o'clock, I can guarantee you can always lose it on the BMT. Ha Brooklyn. Some girls find themselves content with no change, no rings, no stripes. Not me. Oh no, I experiment. Because I believe position is everything in life. A girl may live alone and never have a fellow or to use a telephone. Instead of getting stewed in some secluded little nook, she spends her winter evenings with a good hot look. You either need it or you don't need it. You need it. Now I know what happened to Betty Davis in Detroit. It's the same complaint. You either got it, baby, or you ain't. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love to introduce you to the boys on the stand. Mr. Doug Peck, tackling the ivories. Mr. Shane Harry on the bass. And let's not forget Brian Boyce on the sticks. You either got 'em, baby, or you ain't. I don't think I'm supposed to tell you this, but after her usual set, Bibi would perform an encore for important businessmen that today the FBI would refer to as the mob. Okay, Grandma. Don't worry. Nothing unethical here. They were just huge fans. In fact, when my grandma gave birth to my dad, a bunch of mobsters rolled up to the maternity ward to lavish her with baby gifts. This was one of the more surprising gems I uncovered while working on this show. Who knew there'd be mobsters? When I was a kid, I used to go through my grandmother's closet and try on all of her costume jewelry. I'd listen to her recordings from La Rue Bamboo and think to myself, that's what I want to do. Everything she achieved seemed so glamorous. It never dawned on me that maybe she dealt with some of the same issues in her career that I do in mine now. There's so much of her past I'm piecing back together. Boxes and boxes of journals, reviews, photos, address books to go through. Each one gives me a bird's eye view into her most treasured memories and personal battles. Recently, I uncovered an old newspaper clipping where Bibi tells the story of going to her acting coach, frustrated because she was playing much older roles even though she was only in her 30s. He said, "You're too fat to play anything but maternal." Well, Bibi took her career seriously. So after seeking a medical opinion, she went on the Mayo-approved egg diet, where you eat 6 eggs a day with some fillers. And listen to this. Her doctor told her that if she wanted to slim down, she should take up smoking. There's no getting around it. If you're an actress, the way you look matters. Let's have a look at some of the roles I've been called into play. But like, who doesn't like snacks? Bittersweet and strange, finding you. Oh yeah, this one's my favorite.
Oh my god.
Seeing these breakdowns day after day, it creeps in. Those become the adjectives that make up how you see yourself. And this becomes how you see yourself in the world, not just in your career. It's complicated. You lose 15 pounds and everyone's like, "Wow, you've lost weight." I lose 15 pounds and casting directors are like, "Wow, you've lost weight." Bibi understood. Bibi melted into the Aphrodite role. Bibi has melted herself out of some TV jobs.
Oh.
In the back of my head, I can't help but think if I melted into or out of the right amount of weight, maybe I'd be working more. Nobody wants to see a medium-sized love interest. Does the way that things are going upset you? Does the rattle of the city seem to get you? Are your nerves a trifle edgy? Has your brain begun to vegetate? Is your love life in a hassle? Has your mind begun to vacillate? If we're being honest, it was Bibi's weight loss that led to her next role in The Golden Apple. Would you care for a carefree diversion? Leave this sorry little place for a while. Won't you join me on a holiday excursion to a lovely desert isle? John the Touche saw my nightclub act, and after he said to me, "Bibi, I'd like to write a role to suit you on Broadway someday." Well, in 1954, he did just that, and I was cast as Lovey Moz in The Golden Apple. That's the nice thing about playing a club in New York. It's under a good light, and you've got on your false eyelashes, and the light is shining down. Baya Guna, Guna Guna, Baya Guna, Guna Guna Lagoon. We will croona, croona, croona. We will croona, croona beneath the moon. Those hula dancing mamas are really yama-yamas. They can shake and they can shimmy till they call wild cobras. And no fella, they wear no bras. Noah, Noah, let's go up, let's go up, go away soon. Where breezes blow up, blow up, blow up. Breezes blow up like a big, big bassoon. Snug as 2 baboons in a bamboo tree. I'll bamboozle you and you'll bamboozle me. Baya Guna, Guna Guna, Baya Guna, Guna Guna Lagoon, a lagoon, a lagoon. For my audition, they told me to come prepared with an operatic aria. Well, I wouldn't know an aria if someone whistled it at me. So I sang, "When there's a shine on your shoes and one stinking rose." I'm a personality and a performer. I know who I am. How did she know that? But discovering it took my grandma till she was 36 years old to figure out who she was sure makes me feel better. I've got another 8. I have to stop doing that. I mean, I can't help but compare myself to my grandma. I admire the path she carved so much. But it's time to start charting my own. I think that's what Bibi meant when she said that she needed to fill her own shoes. She had to figure out who she was as a performer. And once she did that, her career really took off. Her Lovey Mars was a prize winner. She won the Outer Critics Circle Award. The attention my grandma received gave her the platform to expand from musical comedy into dramas, soap operas, and she even started nibbling at a thing called commercials.
I notice your bathroom home smells bad for me. She ought to use Standard Flush Liquid Automatic Soap Clean.
Okay, next chapter. What do all of these women have in common? Carol Channing, Betty Grable, Ethel Merman, Ginger Rogers, Martha Ray, Phyllis Diller, and Pearl Bailey. Bibi Osterwald. For 7 years, my grandma was the standby for Dolly Levi in David Merrick's production of Hello, Dolly. The show opened at the St. James Theater in the winter of '64. Speaking of the St. James, remember that promise Bibi made to herself back when she was just an usherette at that theater? That she would one day perform on that stage? Well, she did. She played that role so many times on that stage. So many people give up on their dreams, but not Bibi. She made that promise to herself and she kept it. I wish she knew how much her conviction has influenced me to keep going, not give up. I will never forget my first time going on as Dolly. I got the call at 5:30. On your Sunday clothes when you feel down and out. It was for Ginger Rogers. Step down the street and have your picture took. I promptly arrived at the theater 5 minutes later. Like a dream, your spirit seemed to turn around. That Sunday shine is a certain sign that you feel as fine as you look. Beneath your parasol, the world is all a smile that makes you feel brand new down to your toes. years as Dolly was surreal. As the standby, you couldn't tell the reviewers when you were going on. You had to walk a fine line. Of course you wanted the review, but you had to respect the fact that the show had sold tickets with the star on the marquee. Seeing all of those Dollies come and go over the years, and knowing that I was part of that family but would never be on the marquee, was difficult. I think us standbys have some of the hardest jobs emotionally, because we're always waiting in the wings. Now one week, Betty and David had a little contract disagreement, and she decided to end her run a little early. So I got Dolly to myself that whole week, November 6th to November 11th. They even put it in writing. Roll, Dolly Levi. It was astonishing how many people showed up just by word of mouth. We made $5,000 more that week than the show had with the previous actress. And David Merrick said to me, "Bibi, you act this role better than any Dolly we've had." Well, that was supposed to be my big send-off. My contract was up. The all-black cast was billed to come in, with Pearl Bailey headlining as Dolly. Now, I knew Pearl from the nightclub scene. Great jazz singer. During rehearsals, she fired her standby and said to David Merrick, "I want Bibi to be my standby, get her back here." So I came back. She said to me, "Dolly is Dolly. We can do this together." That show was built to be a success. Those costumes, that dancing, the sweeping melodies. I can hear the orchestra when I close my eyes. My grandma left New York in the late 1970s to pursue a TV and film career in California. The decision was not easy for her. Her and my grandfather had lived in New York for over 30 years. In the past year, I've had my own thoughts of leaving New York. I've only been there 5 years, and I struggle with how tough a decision that would be. The noise, the hysteria, the constant energy. If that place grabs you, it takes a hold of you in a way that's hard to explain. Like your heartbeat and the beat of the city are totally in sync. I understand why people call New York their greatest love affair. New York, DC, California. The 3 places Bibi and I have called home. It's funny, really, how our paths have led us to these 3 places at different times. Standing in Bibi's shoes has been both inspiring and daunting. On one hand, I have the security of knowing that somebody in my family sustained a life in this business. On the other hand, there's something about that looming pressure that really intimidates me. But then Bibi pays me a visit. One night, I was going to see Bullets Over Broadway, and I had this eerie feeling the entire first act. I had just made curtain and hadn't even realized I was at the St. James Theater. I often feel her presence when I audition or walk by her old apartment, like little pats on the back. Reminders to maybe just stop and realize that it's all gonna be okay. Some years ago, with my cousin Lizzie, my Aunt Matilda, and my Uncle John, I visited New York. Uncle John took us on a Fifth Avenue bus, just us on the bus, oh my. And Aunt Matilda, though her feet nearly killed her, walked us from the Brooklyn Bridge to George Washington High. It was so wonderful in every single way. I knew that I'd come back someday. 2 days ago, with no cousin Lizzie, no Aunt Matilda, and no Uncle John, I visited New York. But oh, what a terrible shame. Somehow it isn't the same. Has anybody here seen the Hippodrome? I looked all around for the Hippodrome. Well, if that don't turn up, then I'm going back home, 'cause it ain't New York anymore. Has anybody here seen the aquarium? I looked everywhere for the aquarium. Well, if that's gone just can't be, 'cause it ain't New York anymore. What happened to the trolleys, the follies, the L? Has anybody here seen the Bronx Home News? The music box reviews, the burly cues? Okay. Has anybody here seen the Cotton Club? I looked all around for the Cotton Club. Well, if that's gone too, then I'm telling you, bub, it ain't New York anymore. The way the world has been designed, there's not much time to look behind. And though New York may always be a wondrous place for me, time moves on, even the nickel's gone on the IRT. So it just can't be the same New York. I don't care what they say. I'll take a bite out of the Big Apple anytime. To me. Did you really think that just because she moved to California, she wouldn't find her way back into musical comedy? She's got one more story for you. When I was in Hello Dolly, I had gotten close to Jerry Herman, Michael Stewart, and Gower Champion. We all lived in the same apartment building. Great martini nights around the piano. Whew. So when I got the call to Broadway's opening night on 42nd Street, I wasn't gonna miss it. Sitting in that audience was magnificent, just magnificent. Gower's choreography captured the nostalgia of the good old days. When the curtain came down, the audience was on its feet. Suddenly, David Merrick walked on stage, asked for silence, and solemnly announced that Gower had died earlier that day. If you've a melancholy case of the blues, I've got a remedy for you. I accepted the offer to tour as Maggie Jones in 42nd Street. If you've an ounce of rhythm down in your shoes, then I'll change your point of view. It was my way of paying tribute to my friend. If you've been singing a sad and blue song, go into your dance until you learn how to sing a new song. Go into your dance. Don't be complaining. Learn how to smile, and if it's raining, dance in the rain a while. Put off your sorrow until tomorrow. Go into your dance. Shake your shoes and go into your dance. Elise, get that hat off the bed. I have to teach you some things about luck. We never put hats on the bed. We never walk under ladders. Keep model elephants with the trunks up in the dressing room for good luck. And don't forget a marble Buddha. You rub his belly every night before you go on. You have to find yourself a fortune teller or a palm reader. Elise, I'm serious. You know the luck you can get in this business. Get that hat off the bed! Don't be complaining. Learn how to smile. And if it's raining, dance in the rain a while. Put off your sorrow until tomorrow. Go into your dance. Shake your shoes and go into your dance. Nailed it. I never got to say goodbye to my grandma. One day we were doing one act in her living room, and the next she was sick and in the hospital. For a while there, I thought that was the end of our relationship. But I realized, once I decided to pursue this as my career, she hadn't left me after all. She had just passed the torch. She wasn't a household name or winning Oscars, She worked on incredible projects with incredible people. Because she was the everyman's artist. The person in the corner of the screen with 6 lines, the one they call when they need an immediate replacement, because she was just that reliable. Sustaining a life in this business is not about racking up the accolades. It's about the importance of hard work. And my work is just beginning. I think doing what I love, even if it's at Gower Champion Studios and not with Gower Champion, is a blessing. I mean, Bibi loved holding court, and I just put you through an hour of just me. The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. And to be honest, I couldn't ask for a better shadow to stand in. I think we did you justice. But did we forget anything?
Oh, the sun will always be shining. When there's clouds of gray, we shouldn't complain. Just behind that cloud is a silver lining. So remember when there's a little rain. One little raindrop doesn't mean a shower. One little raindrop doesn't mean a storm.
Raindrop doesn't mean a storm.
Don't worry, don't be blue. The sweetest dreams take longest to come true. And one little heartache doesn't mean that it's broken. One little smile will mend it every time. One little raindrop doesn't mean a shower. And after the rain, the sun is bound to shine.
One little raindrop doesn't mean a shower. One little raindrop doesn't mean a storm. When trouble troubles you, don't worry, don't be blue. The sweetest dreams take longest to come true.
And one little heartache doesn't mean that it is broken. One little smile will mend it every time. One little raindrop doesn't mean a shower. And after the rain, the sun